Now, as we continue to talk about Black college sports, let's take a look over on the East Coast and talking about the MEAC, the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. And nobody did to have this conversation then who pretty much broke this story. And this is my man, Aubryon Scott, a.k.a. Offscript. What's up, Scotty?
What's going on, Pete? It's A. Brian, not Aubryon.
Well, you know, it's it's apple. Well, it's tomato. Say it for me. Say it for the people again.
Abrion.
See, I'm just used to calling you Scotty. So Abrion Scott. I got to give your real name, your government name. You okay with that?
I'm perfectly fine with it. My mom is pretty much happy with it.
My man Scotty, what's up with it, man?
Man, what's good? How you doing this morning?
I'm doing good, man. How about yourself?
Good, man. Just chilling, man. Waking up. I don't know how you do this, boy. I don't. Every time I come on here, I be like, I don't know how this thing would do it every time.
Don't nobody understand how I do it. You know, for 2 hours on a Saturday morning, man. And I like to enjoy my Friday nights, but listen, woo! Mike could tell you when I stumble up in this place and on a Saturday morning trying to wake people up with some energy. Man, been having that energy myself. But man, listen, Scotty, you broke some news, man. And I don't really know if it's breaking, but you brought it to everybody's attention that there's a possibility of trouble down the pipeline for the MEAC. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, man. So at first I got a source that hit me up and was like, hey, NCCU and South Carolina State are looking to make some moves. And you know, with me, you know, I do a little word on the street, but I don't like to do it with just one source. So, you know, a couple of days go by and I get hit up by 2 other people. And they're like, hey, you know, rumor is, and it's the same thing. So I ran with it. But the thing is, it really started back after the MEAC tournament. And a lot of Howard alums were getting on Twitter complaining of the circumstances of the tournament. They didn't like it. They need to be moved because when they see the CIAA tournament, they see what the SWAC is doing in Atlanta, right? It's more conducive to the environment that they want, and they feel Norfolk is not. So, you know, but as commissioners, and you know, I won't go too hard, but as commissioners do, they do what's best for them and their bottom line, and Norfolk gives them a good deal on the stadium. But a lot of Howard alums are like, hey, if we don't move this, you know, we're going to start pulling our weight. And we kind of understood what that was. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying like, hey, we'll shake this thing up. We don't have to be in the MEAC. And I think that was the first domino that failed. And then when you start hearing rumors of NCCU and South Carolina State being courted by SoCon, the CAA, and the CIAA, if anybody doesn't know, that's a Division II conference, which NCCU came out of, right? That it started getting traction. It started getting serious. So it's just a lot of moving parts to this. And I think Sandra, the commissioner of the MEAC, she really, really needs to be on her P's and Q's.
How serious is this situation? I know it was a rumor mill, but as it started to unfold, I saw even with what you tweeted, I started to see South Carolina State Alumni Association pick up on this and try to bring awareness amongst their alums. But how serious can this potentially be?
Very serious. I know I'll say this on the NCCU and Howard side, it is very serious. Now, South Carolina State, I think they're still a little fluid, but NCCU, I talked to a very, very high alum who's really close to the chancellor and and he told me, he was like, we were possibly thinking about moving last year. He said, but I'm telling you right now, he said, if the right opportunity comes, NCCU is gone.
You know, and that's tough because looking at the MEAC, of course, they lost North Carolina A&T and Hampton. They've recently lost Bethune-Cookman and Florida A&M, who have come over to the SWAC. And now the possibility, you're saying North Carolina Central, Howard, and maybe South Carolina State. That's tough for that conference, man, moving forward. And what is the outlook? And then what seems to be the complaint that they're having with the MEAC, if you have heard a complaint?
The lack of vision, right? So it's a multitude of things, but I think the hiring of Sandra Stills rubbed people the wrong way. And I think you got that hire because of an in-house, I'll say she's an in-house funeral director, right? So it's like, you know how the bodies were embalmed. You know where the dead bodies are. You know where the bones are scattered. So you're not going to come into a situation and shake the boat. You're just happy to get the job. And I think it's one of those things where, and we all are your listeners, and we understand when new management comes on the scene, right? Like somebody outside of the company, stuff changes, right? Y'all do this. Why y'all doing this? We don't do this. And, at my last job, and it's always that type of energy that comes into the room. And I think for a lot of HBCU conferences, they don't want that energy, because now you start to question, why were you guys doing this? Who branded with this? Who thought this was a smart deal? Who thought this was a smart way to negotiate this? You get a lot of that, and making people feel inferior to what they what they felt they had accomplished. So that's how you get Sanja in position. And then on top of that, with no lack of vision, where there isn't any attempt to bring in new schools. And I say this on my platform all the time. I'm like, listen, and once again, to all you listeners out there, there's PWI conferences. We understand that. But they understand, to survive in this day and age in college athletics, you need bodies. You need schools. So what did these PWI conferences do? They went and got some HBCU schools that have a great profile, that have a great marketing base, and say, hey, listen, come on over here. We'd love to have you. We'd love to have you as a member. But we're not doing that for our Black conferences. We're not going out trying to survive and getting comparable PWIs to come into the conference to say, hey, keep us alive, keep our legacy going until we find, another Black school to elevate and come into the conference. So I think it's a lack of vision. It's, piss poor planning of trying to get new institutions into the MEAC. And it's the lack of ingenuity and creativity to do something different and to give the schools a different experience. So it's the same old, and they're tired of it.
And I think the writing is on the wall, and it's been there quite some time for the MEAC. You had Savannah State, who had moved up for a quick second and realized, hey, this is a lot to deal with. They dropped back down to Division II. You looked at once Hampton and A&T, and A&T had success in the MEAC, especially when you're talking about football side of things. But when you saw them jump and said, hey, thank you, but no thank you, we'll move forward. And then I think it really made sense once you lost to Florida, Bethune-Cookman, and Florida A&M. It really started to wake up and say, man, what more does this conference have to offer? Because teams are jumping ship. And right now, if you start to lose the rest of those teams, man, you're going to really be left with nothing. Hey, Scotty, I got to get ready to take a break. Can you hold on for a second?
I surely can.
Got my man Scotty, the host of a YouTube series, Offscript. Glad to have him on with us. We're talking about the MEAC. Is the MEAC in trouble? And Scotty, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on and talk about this, you brought this attention to everybody because you started to hear the rumblings and having that conversation. But most importantly, if you're in the SWAC, this matters to you. This is nothing that you just looking over in the MEAC and saying, well, that's their business. They're going to have to deal with it. One of the reasons I want to have this conversation here, because this is going to potentially impact the SWAC if this move does happen with schools leaving the MEAC, because guess what? The SWAC and the MEAC have a partnership. For those out there that's listening, only the biggest Black college football game of the year is called the Celebration Bowl, which is crowned our basically Division I HBCU national champion, the winner of the MEAC versus the winner of the SWAC, with a national televised game played in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Scotty, if this move does happen, we then have to look at what it could do to potentially jeopardize the future of the Celebration Bowl.
Absolutely. I mean, you better get ready for the FCS playoff. I mean, other than Grambling and Southern, right? But it's one of those things where it's tough, because it's like, yeah, they'll mess up an opportunity, but they messed it up themselves. It's not something that ESPN dropped the ball on. Again, it's one of those things which your mom would say, if you really cared about it, you would have done the due diligence to make sure it happened, right? I know it looks bad when you add PWIs and then they could possibly be in the Celebration Bowl, but hey, man, listen, you gotta do what you gotta do to make sure you survive, and that is where the lack of ingenuity, of vision has is falling victim to the MEAC. So yeah, I mean, could it be detrimental? Absolutely. One team leaves, it's a wrap. It only takes one domino to fall in this thing to really make it a house of cards that just comes collapsing down on itself. And it's sad because I believe it is preventable with the right commissioner. And I do believe if I'm the MEAC and I'm president, you got to make a quick and haste decision to let her go and get somebody in there that you feel can turn the MEAC around and give them a chance. Because I feel like it's like this, Pete. I feel like if they get a new commissioner, and they'll give you time. You know what I'm saying? They'll give you about 1 or 2 years to kind of like, hey, figure this out, fix it. But if that doesn't work, or if that is not the route they decide to go, yeah, the MEAC could be on his last days.
Let me ask you this and have this conversation with me. I'm finna go outside the box. I'm finna go way outside the box, all right? For everybody out there listening, even Scotty, I'm finna do it. So don't be like, what the hell is Perry? All right, if I'm the SWAC, I now have to start thinking about a plan B. Because the Celebration Bowl means something for me. I'm no longer looking at the MEAC because I'm saying, hey, they got issues over there, and I don't know how long. They may survive next year. They may survive the year after, but nonetheless, we see they have issues. All right, if I'm the SWAC, now I got to start to look at football as our biggest moneymaker. How do we then continue the success that we want to have in terms of bringing viewers and fans? Because in all honesty, the SWAC does not want to participate in the FCS football as a whole. You got some teams who will. We saw Florida A&M do it. They were the first team since the 90s in the conference to participate in the FCS playoffs. Listening to Prairie View's AD and their new coach, to me it sounds like, hey, if we fall short of a championship, we'll have no problem participating in the FCS playoffs. But now let's have an outside-the-box conversation. If something happens to the MEAC and the MEAC can no longer hold their weight, because they're already playing conference, they don't start conference schedule until Halloween, ladies and gentlemen. That is November 1st, the end of October. While the SWAC is already a month into conference play, probably for some teams, a month and a half into conference play. The SWAC, I think, in my opinion, has to begin to look forward. And if you want to look forward into the future of what SWAC football could look like, maybe SWAC football has to then some type of way have its own playoff. And I say it this way. Once again, I'm out the box. Y'all just bear with me as I explain it. If we no longer can continue to move forward with the MEAC, with the Celebration Bowl, basically the SWAC championship is a semifinal game into the championship game itself anyway. If I take away the divisions, and here we go, and let's say, Scotty, I start to do pods. People may not like it, but let's look at a pod. Let's take, I say, a West pod. I put Texas Southern, Prairie View, Grambling, and Southern in that pod. I may have another pod with 4 teams: UAPB, Mississippi Valley, Jackson, Alcorn. Then I got another pod. Let's make that the East: Alabama State, Alabama A&M, Bethune-Cookman, Florida A&M. Now, I'm just giving an idea because there's still a lot of thought to be put into it. But then you take away from so many teams having to play each other throughout the conference season, which we're playing 8-9 conference games now. You keep it within those pods because guess what? Geographically, those pods are putting you in great places for your fan bases to play those teams, and those are your considered main conference games. And maybe you have that 1 or 2 inter-pod, like we do now, divisional game. When we get to the end of the season, you get the 4 best teams, and you do a semifinal game. And that semifinal game is hosted at the 2 teams whoever have the highest seed. And then after that semifinal game, whoever wins those games where a school gets to host that, those 2 teams go play in the Celebration Bowl. It's out the box. It's a lot of thought that needs to go into it in terms of logistics. But I'm just thinking that's just some type of thought that has to be out there in order to realize how important the Celebration Bowl is to us. And if we got to carry it ourselves and basically make it a glorified SWAC championship game, then we got to be thinking ahead the possibilities of what could be out there in order to be able to continue to have that game and then play those semifinal games, basically what the SWAC championship game is now. You're basically just adding one more with one more team hosting it, and everybody moves on. It's far-fetched, it's out the box, but it's just a thought.
I wouldn't, me personally, I don't think the SWAC football is good enough for that. right? If there were more top teams that could give you some parity, maybe in the 90s where, or early 2000s when, it was a strong case. I don't think you can get that now. What I would do, I would still take your premise, but I would open it up to every HBCU Division I, right? If you're not in your conference's championship game, or you don't have a bid to go into the playoffs, you're eligible to be a part of the Celebration Bowl playoff, right? So it would be like I would do a 6 to 8 team playoff, maybe 6 to 8, 6 or 8, and I would open it to Tennessee State. I would open it to NCAT. I would open it to Hampton, right? If NCCU and they in South Carolina State dip or Howard, I'm opening it to every HBCU Division I. And I think that gives you it gives you the parity that you're looking for, because you've seen these teams play over here. You've seen these teams play over there, but they haven't played each other, right? You've seen in the SWAC of how teams have played each other. So it would be like watching repeats all over again. And I don't think there's a brand of football that good to be like, I want to watch that again.
And I guess, Scotty, that's why I'm limited when I'm saying pods. Yeah. I'm limited the amount of possibilities that you may get these rematches. It's almost like, look at the MEAC right now. The MEAC plays how many conference games? 4 or 5?
5.
5. The rest of that schedule is open to do whatever you want to do. All right, let's say we do the same thing. If we're going to do this, where we're going to do these 4 or 5, let's say 5 conference games, right? If you have these pods, it's 4 teams. You got 3 teams that you playing within your pod for sure, because geographically they make sense. Then you can get 2 other teams that you want. Whoever the other 2 could be, and it could make sense for you geographically, or it can make sense to you because of rivals or whatever else. So now you limit the possibilities of that many more rematches down the line. And if you want to get wacky with it, if you really want to get wacky and bringing in the HBCUs, if South Carolina State, Central, and let's say even Howard decides to leave, or let's say Howard stays, then you absorb and create a whole nother pod with those teams that's left over from the MEAC. You got Delaware State and Norfolk with Michael Vick and Deshaun right there. You got Morgan State. And if Howard sticks around, you got Howard. You will have 4 more teams to add to include in it. And, hey, these are ideas, but it's just the thought of we got to start having ideas out there right now, because the writing is on the wall. The MEAC is unstable. And if we do not start to have these type of think tanks currently for the survival, because we always talking about, we see the world of college athletics change, particularly college football, directly in front of us. We realize now how big the Celebration Bowl is for not only the MEAC, clearly, but for the SWAC, the added revenue, the television, everything else that goes along with it. There's no way we can lose it because of what it means to us right now. So we got to start to have these think tanks. And if something is far-fetched, that's fine. It's a thought. It's an idea. That's the type of creative things that has to be on the table right now in order to be able to ensure that we have that we survive the future of college football.
I just, listen, I like the idea, premise. I just don't like it. First of all, if you add in Delaware State and Norfolk, that's just ridiculous, right? Because the travel is just going to be crazy.
Well, that's why you do the pods. Remember, they play their teams there, and then they don't seed everybody else into the possibility of when you get to that playoff. My
thing is this, though. The issue with that is, who's to say they don't jump into another conference?
Well, they could.
That's why I think if you leave it, if you want to do the pods and the SWAC, I think they should do that regardless, because I think it shouldn't be any divisions, right? So that we'll leave that as it is. We'll agree on that.
I'm agree with you. I'm not a fan of the East-West division at all.
Yeah, most of these teams are going to jump into other conferences because they got sports to play, right? They want to do basketball. They're not going to stay independent. So you have to already have that premise that, okay, Delaware State probably going to go to the MEAC. Howard, NCCU, or South Carolina State either going to go to the CAA or they're going to the SoCon, right? South Carolina State might go to SoCon, NCCU, and Howard might go to the CAA because of NCAT and Hampton being there, and they're their natural rival. So, hey, let's just slide them over to CAA. So if they're all jumping ship, right, Norfolk might go to the OVC or Big South or whatever. So if they're already in a conference, that's why, to me, I think if you just leave it open, I don't think any of those programs they might win their conference maybe once or twice in every 4 or 5 years.
Oh, so the ones that are in the PWI conferences.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, look how long Tennessee State been. It's been a long time since they won that conference, right? They got a share of that. I don't see A&T or Hampton no time soon winning their conference.
Okay, you know what I'm saying? But why? But wouldn't they be they'll be a great addition to a black college playoff system, because the fans going to come, right? And the fact that they get an opportunity to go back to the Celebration Bowl and win it when they're not in a black conference, they're going to brag about it.
Now, this is the only thing I would say. They're going to have to at least play something. I can't have you coming into my playoff and you only won 3 games on the season.
No, B. It's the top teams in HBCU. It's not. Yeah, it will be like, let's say Tennessee State lost their championship game, or they lost and they couldn't make it to the championship game. Well, that's an 8-win team.
Yeah.
Like, that's the team you would invite. You would invite an NCCU that missed that had that battle with South Carolina State. You would invite them. You would invite NCCU. So let's just go by this year, right? So Tennessee State didn't make it. You would invite them. You wouldn't have invited in-cat. They were trash, right? Yeah. So you would do NCCU, South Carolina State, Tennessee State, Jackson State, SAMU, Bama State, and that's pretty. And Southern, you have to have Southern in there. So you might.
Yeah, you got to have Southern in there.
Yeah, because it was in the SWAC championship. So you have to have Southern, Jackson, SAM, NCCU.
So you want a big playoff?
Yeah, like
I'm trying to limit it to just a semifinal and a championship is what I'm trying to do.
No.
I'm trying to limit it to 2 games.
Nah.
2 games, the higher seed win. You win home field advantage, and then we take it because we're talking about getting late into the season into December. There's only so much of this I can sell to our fans and then trying to get them to go to Atlanta. There's only so much that I know we're going to be able to spend on travel and everything else that late into the season, and then trying to get them.
It's really not that late, because you have you know why it's that late? Because of the Bayou Classic. That's the reason why everything got to get pushed back.
And it's
the Bayou Classic, and we don't have enough time in the day to talk about why they still trying to play that game that late. But neither here nor there. My thing is this: is that you just do double headers on Saturday, right? So if the week after you to me, listen, I don't care about the college football playoffs. That's not our concern. You use the week after for the doubleheader, and then you use the next week for, the finish off, and then you got the Celebration Bowl. That's just what it is. So if you do 8 teams, 2 teams are going to be on bye. So you need 3 weeks. So you need the first week for the quarterfinals, then the semifinals, and then the championship game.
And see, look, that's all we're doing. We're having conversation, people. This is what has to happen. Young brothers with creative minds. We trying here, Scotty. We're not saying it's perfect. We're not saying it's perfect. We're not saying we got all the answers, but this is the type of conversations that we got to begin to start to have, because once again, the writing is on the wall. The MEAC is in trouble. The MEAC has already lost 4 teams in the past, considered 5 with Savannah State dropping down to Division II, and with South Carolina State, North Carolina Central, and Howard now potentially saying, you know what, I may jump ship too. Us as a conference for survival as the SWAC got to begin to look at it, because guess what? Football above anything. I love the rest of the sports, but football is the moneymaker. It's what pays the bill, and it what brings the eyes to our school. It is the front door to all of our athletics. So, Scotty, man, I appreciate you for coming on this morning and being able to share that information with me. And look, man, I always enjoy just being able to have that think tank. Ain't none of us have it perfect. None of us got the answer, but the fact is, this is where the conversations start, being able to put an idea out there and start going back and forth with those ideas and writing it down and figure out what the possibilities can be.
I mean, I got the answer. You ain't got the answer, Sway, but I got the answer.
Look at him. See, you try to give him a compliment, then he shows out. Bye, man.
See you later, boy.